Okay, so we would really thank you very much, Chief Cooper, for this interesting speech. We now have time to take some questions. If you would like to ask some specific questions now, and we can discuss on actually this chapter or this challenge to evaluating the present or what to do in the present. So are there any questions at the moment? Like, we can't really see you, but if you stand up, we can take your questions. Okay, so maybe I got one question, if I may ask, because you both actually addressed like mostly the German tax-paying public, no, also to mobilize and to put pressure on the German government. So what do you think, what can we do exactly to like organize more protests? Or do you maybe also think that we should, or maybe you can also think, what do you think, what has actually changed over the last 25 years, over the decades? Has anything changed, actually, in your view, according to?
I don't know whether anything has changed since I was not involved in German politics. But what we hear from the German people that are visiting Namibia is that this genocide issue is not widely known in Germany. It is only known to few that are in the parliament and maybe in Berlin or Frankfurt, but generally the whole public, the German public, is unaware. That's why they are not talking about this. So I cannot really say what has changed and what has not changed. I'm sorry for that. So I don't know whether anything has changed.
Thank you very much. What we meant actually is that we should sensitize and inform the majority of the German community about our case, so that as human beings, they will feel pity for us because of the act or the deed of their ancestors, so that at least as human beings, they can persuade their leaders to listen and to come to a round table with us and discuss the way forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have a gentleman here who have a question.
Okay, Markus Meckel, I for a long time was member of the German Bundestag. Now I'm a free citizen. And last year I visited Namibia and had some talks with some of you, Mr. Chief Gazembe. We met together in Okagarara when we opened a prayer house there in July. And I would tell some little points. The first one is I'm really happy that you all are here, because I think this whole process has to be accompanied and pushed by civil society. And that's why it's a really crucial thing that both in Namibia and also in Germany, there is, what you mentioned, not real awareness about that. There are some initiatives as these organizers here and in Hamburg and in some other little places, but we have a lot to do in Germany to empower people to understand. And that's a question of knowledge. And there it is a long way to push it. That the public and that schools and children and that the people get to know more about what is happening. What happened in that time more than 100 years ago. We all know that it's a long process, but we should do it. And that's why it's important that you are here. And we should consider together what can be done to use your presence here in Germany and in Berlin and where to present it to the public more than it was possible until now. My second point is that I think that it's really a pity that the politicians of the German Bundestag and the government didn't follow your invitation. I think that's really a pity, and it would be good and it would be important to claim and to sell that it is important for them that they have to listen. I can say that I will, what I can do in my contacts to tell them, to Mr. Polenz, to the government, to the Foreign Office, that I think that your demand is totally not only legitimate, but it is necessary that the victims of that time have to be involved in that process. This is, in my view, the main and the crucial position we should put together. I have some doubts, and let's discuss it in the special rounds, for instance, with the question of reparation and the question of compensation. By which model it could and should be done? You have to answer that question in the legal base. I think that's really difficult. And that's why, in my view, it is much more important today to push forward the question of public awareness, to start with first steps. And I think, for instance, the question to discuss about and to consider how the remembrance to the victims can be made in public in Germany with education, but also in your country. How special places could develop as places for remembrance, which is not the case. There, if I was responsible for graves, for the German war graves, and I can only say we care for war graves for Germans, but we don't care for your victims' graves, and this we should do.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Actually, it's with a lot of emotion that also I would like to say thank you to the whole delegation. Actually, I would say as well as a tax-paying African in Germany, it is also our duty to know. Because, you know, when you see this decade, you see recognition, justice, development. It could be called education, justice, development. It could be called political consciousness, justice, development. And there are two things. I'm sure that when you were talking to the German public, you were also talking to us. Because I'm very concerned about that one thing. If you ask any African here, one out of how many are going to know that there was, you know, such torture, a genocide on African soil. They will look and beg big eyes, and maybe because we will be talking, they will not even believe us. That is the first thing. So the issue is, what's also that is the issue of mobilizing the whole African community in this, you know, region of Europe called Germany, for a start. You know, there are many other regions in Europe, like there are many other regions in Africa. So to sensitize so that maybe to go to the African organizations here, so that at least nobody of our children could ignore that this genocide was committed on African soil. against errors and namas, and that people are standing upright and claiming for their rights. The second issue also is, when we talk about justice and when we talk about recognition, justice, yes, both and recognition. And I remember a few years ago, we were, I'm from the Central Council of the African Community. Our chairperson, Mokhtar, talked at the opening. I remember that now I was not as a Central African, I was a member of the little, region, of the coastal region, of a region of Africa called Cameroon, And we also went to see one of your representatives and gave this representative one of our kabas, our traditional dress. And we said that this is a greetings, a solidarity greetings of us. We have our issue of reparations with the Germans. Yes, I know it's the time, but sorry, I will be still finishing one sentence and maybe a few others. So that was a solidarity message of our little region to your big nation. So the issue is as well to be able to link up as scientists, as lawyers, in order to find ways and means to have different models to claim our reparations. And I'm saying also as one of the descendants of one of the martyrs, by the way, but that's another issue. But anyway, the first issue really at the Central Council of the African Community as well is to link up to make sure that in no African schools, our children will ignore, and also young people and older people will ignore what is your issue and the way you see what should be done.
Thank you very much.
And then we would read the second part of the resolution.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. It's a pity to hear that German government has got a body that is caring for the German war graves, but they don't care with the victims of their ancestral deeds, but yet they care for the graves. One thing is, I appeal to you to tell your government that at least for now, as an immediate intervention, as I said, that our reserves or homelands are overcrowded and full, and because of the prolonged drought, it cannot sustain our people any longer. So there should be an immediate intervention so that land should be immediately made available to resettle some of our people, to make space for them. Because, as I said, currently, we are not in the driving seat of our government's vehicle, and the land that is bought by your money is given to people who never lost land, just because they are sitting in the driving seat of government. This is a friendly request to you, Germans. Please tell your government there is immediate need. Otherwise, as I told you, we cannot tell these people to hold on for a long time. Thank you.
So, unfortunately we are running out of time. We would like to present the second part of the resolution, and then we could continue the discussion.
Okay. Now, the second part of the resolution are these. Number one, recognize that the Ovaherero and Nama communities present situation not only in Namibia but also in diaspora is a direct result of the genocide of 1904 to 1908.
So the second point is that we emphasize that the ongoing intergovernmental negotiations between Namibia and Germany are taking place behind closed doors and without the acknowledged and authentic representatives of the Ovaherero and Nama communities.
Number 3, affirm that the exclusion of the Ovaherero and Nama representatives from a direct participation in the negotiation by the German government constitute an extension of the crime of genocide and violates the victim-centered principle of restorative justice.
So the fourth point, we underline that the Namibian government cannot by any means claim to represent the considerable Ovaherero and Nama communities in the diaspora, above all in South Africa and Botswana.
Number 5, point out that the exclusion of the affected communities from a direct participation in the negotiations by the Namibian government is in direct opposition to the decision of the Namibian Parliament in 2006, where it was defined that its role as a facilitator of negotiations between the Germany and the Ovaherero and Nama communities.
And the last, no, not the last, the sixth point is that we affirm that this exclusion of the Ovaherero and Nama actually contradicts the spirit of the Declaration of the World Conference Against Racism in Durban in 2001, especially Article 23, 43, and 98 to 106.
Number 7, emphasize that this exclusion also contradicts the spirit of the 2007 United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Kambadembi. Thank you, Chief Cooper. And this is the...
I think we should, in the fifth point, we should listen to what the Chief Cooper said, that he doesn't like the effect of effective communities.
Okay.
Perhaps we can replace this with Herero and Nama communities.
Thank you.
Okay, we will have this.
Thank you for that correction.
Can you go to point number 4 as well?
Point number 4?
Number 4. And I'll tell you why. Okay, when we speak about the Ovaherero and Nama communities in the diaspora, above all in South Africa, Botswana, I see that as restrictive. We have a very large Ovaherero community in the United States. We are governed by our chief, Paramount Chief Ekwiru Koro, to whom we have placed our loyalty and working with him. So I think we may want to, as the committees are working through this, to make that, because I see that as a little bit restrictive. So when you start mentioning where they are, you run the risk of excluding somebody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. I'm Tim Friedrich from the Nama community. In the earlier presentation about the present situation, we are comfortably forgetting the German citizens inside Namibia who are arrogantly and demeaningly trying to forget and bypass the situation that had occurred in Namibia during the genocide or prior to the genocide. Therefore, it is important that we should also look into getting the Namibian Germans on board of this discussion, because they are totally in exclusion of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will add this to the draft, like your comments. So thank you. Are there any more? No. Ah, sorry, I can't. I cannot see anything.
Just a little comment for consistency. When you look at 1 and 2, or rather 2 and 3, the notion of exclusion vis-à-vis discussions taking place between governments behind closed doors. I think for consistency, we have to make that very clear. I think that decision largely by our communities not to participate was driven by principles as enumerated by some of the speakers here. And I think when Madam Muinyangwe spoke, she made that very clear. And then when we come to, which I think is covered by point 2. And then when you look at point 3, it sounds like it's a bit contradicting the earlier position enumerated in point 2. So I think it's just important that we harmonize those so that they speak to what we stand for.
Thank you. Thank you. Have you noted this? No. Okay. Okay, so thank you all very much. We will include this, and we will also read the other parts of the resolution within the next panels, and then we will have a discussion about the whole, all the part in the end also. It's now.
I would like to come back to the proposal of the Nama friend who said the German or the Namibians from German descent are not included. I think perhaps the Commission reading and rewriting things should perhaps think about a paragraph that we all in Germany have the task to bring to knowledge to the German government that they should, my government, should do their part to talk to the Germans in Namibia, because very often I think they have double citizenship.
Yes.
And very often,
They don't require visas to come
it is
here.
also their responsibility. They work very close together with our embassy in Namibia. And I have a little idea that perhaps it is not without the knowledge of our embassy that perhaps it should not be in the interest of the Germans to give up 3 parts of their land. So we, and I see, this is my responsibility, I see, also to appeal to the German government, to our parliamentarians, to talk to those Germans in Namibia to see what they have at the moment, and then they are ready to give things.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we really have to close the panel now, otherwise we won't have dinner. So could we maybe continue the discussion afterwards, or is it